Morning, everyone. This is update for June 26, 2022, day 123 of the war, end of the date update. As always, we're going to discuss general and strategic topics, and then we're going to do walks through the front line. So let's start with the strategic topics. First, let's talk a little bit about Lithuania again, the same corridor issue. So the most latest information is the following: that the European Union wants, preparing some documents or whatever, some decision to allow Russia to freely transport whatever it wants to Kaliningrad region, and then Lithuanian president and leadership wants to block it and just veto that and essentially prevent that from happening. So this is the latest status on that situation. Then let's look at another country, which is Turkey, which is sort of, you can call it an Ukrainian neighbor through the sea. So Turkey is straight south of Ukraine, bordering through the Black Sea. So Turkey announced that it's not going to support West in its sanctions against Russia because it contradicts its economic interest. And Turkey is also a member of the NATO, and it does look to us that there is clearly more and more rift between the Turkey and let's call it West, or the remaining members of the NATO. So it remains to be seen where it's all going to go in the long run. But in any case, Turkey wants to position itself as sort of hub also for negotiations between Ukraine and Russia. So there is also that logic that they would like to get more sort of diplomatic clout and influence in the region by being able to negotiate the peace. For those who sort of missed it, the one round of negotiations was in Istanbul, which is largest Turkish city, in early March. It was the sort of first and final round of negotiations that failed. Then in other news, Ukraine is gonna receive NASAMS, anti-air, basically anti-aircraft and anti-missile missile system. So this is medium-range system. That's something that Ukraine desperately needs, obviously, and this is actually it's very. The only question about this system is how long the Ukrainian crews needs to. How long does it take to train Ukrainian crews to operate those? Because it might be like a couple months, 3 months, and that time, that's very precious time. The reason it's precious because today Russia renewed its attacks against the infrastructure, Ukrainian sort of logistical infrastructure. So specifically, they hit the bridge here in near Cherkasy. So this is one huge artificial lake here for hydropower generation, and there is a dam across that lake. That serves as obviously as a bridge as well. There is railroad bridge. There is a regular road bridge there as well. So Russia hit specifically railroad bridge and damaged the section of it. So essentially, this bridge is not usable at the moment. It's probably can be fixed relatively quickly. But let's actually look. This is this dam that's across the Dnipro River. Right, so that's where they hit in this area, and they severely damaged one section of the bridge, and destroyed the railroad track on top of it. So what this really means is that Russia is seriously starting to consider options of destroying bridges across Dnipro River. to hinder transportation of the Ukrainian military sort of troops, military equipment to Donbas, right? So they started it sometime in May, but it was just very relatively small. Well, relatively small, I would say. It's not little, but they were hitting mostly locomotive depots at that time. And then also bridge here near Bilhorod-Dnistrovsky that they damaged, and then finally they destroyed it. So this is the next step, and it really means that attacks may accelerate across the Dnipro River, and if enough bridges destroyed, this will essentially cut Ukraine into two halves. And it's going to be extremely hard to nearly impossible to resupply Ukrainian troops here and generally on this whole eastern front section of the front line at Zaporizhia. So this could be the most dangerous move by the Russian military so far, and obviously this NASAMS would be extremely useful in providing defense for for the bridges across Dnipro River. If any of the dams across Dnipro on this artificial lakes is destroyed, it can lead to totally catastrophic results, because it's going to be a very huge flood downstream, and there are a lot of cities, towns downstream. So for example, obviously, if you destroy the dam here, then the part of the Kyiv that's on the eastern bank of Dnipro River is gonna get flooded and essentially destroyed. There will be a huge number of human losses. Then similar situation here. If you destroy this dam, then probably Cherkasy is gonna get flooded, and also potentially Kremenchuk, and it really can sort of create like a domino effect that the pressure of the water will be strong enough that it may just destroy the dam, one after another, right? And there is this Kremenchuk city, Kremenchuk. Then there is city Dnipro that's about 1 million inhabitants. Zaporizhia is slightly less, about like 800,000. Then Kherson down the road there. There's potentially huge human losses can happen if one of the dams gets destroyed. So hopefully it doesn't get to that, but we're just saying that the situation is clearly not going in the right direction, let's put it this way. Then we also have some information about Belarus. This is a Ukrainian neighbor towards the north. We denote it as BY. As we mentioned many times, it's essentially one country with Russia. Nevertheless, there is some sort of remnants of independence there. And there was interesting information provided by the insider from the Belarus army in terms of readiness and preparedness of Belarus army to attack Ukraine, which we also saw that it's not there, and his sort of views corroborate. Basically, what he says that there are only 3 special forces brigades that are ready and available and willing, the most important part, to participate. And for those, we mentioned the sizes of this special forces brigade in the past, they tend to be very small. It's between 500 people to maximum 1,700 people, right? So let's say they are 1,000 each. They're not full strength for sure, because Belarus was not truly preparing for the war and anything. So that's about 3,000-4,000 people in total. And then there was one mechanized brigade that's also is available. That's another 3,000-4,000 people. So in total, at most, Belarus can put on a front line about 8,000 people, and which means 8,000 soldiers, which means willing soldiers who at least somewhat motivated, right? Who wants to sort of go into fight and potentially die, right? We're not talking about some conscripts who just gonna run away at the first shot and that's it. We're talking about people who actually want to join the war. So that's, and then as we discussed before and many times, what is 8,000 really the soldiers that are actually in the fighting component are only about 4,000, right? So this really tiny force, and that's probably why Belarus doesn't join Russia so far, even though it faces significant pressure to join, just because there is nothing to join with in the first place there. So we kind of continue believing that chances that Belarus will join this war are close to zero. Nevertheless, they never zero. Anything is possible. Things can change quickly, and so on. This is war, but we would say probability is very low. Then we would like to discuss a situation, more about the economy in Russia. So we have some information on Russian commercial cargo. So the commercial air cargo traffic dropped 75% in the first 3 months of this year relative to the previous year, which obviously was sort of more normal year. So it really kind of tells us that the all air transportation industry essentially grounded in Russia and doesn't function. And the cumulative losses also for 3 months of this year for the all of the Russian air companies is 61 billion rubles, which obviously depending on what exchange rate you use, it could be as high as $1 billion or $500 million, right? So and this is just for the 3 months, and then it includes passenger plus the commercial cargo. So essentially, all of the industry is slowly dying, and these losses are record losses for the Russian air transportation industry. Then in other news, sort of related economic news, the West blocked sale of Russia gold to the West, which is, in our opinion, again, similar policy mistake to what's being done to the crude oil. So all it really means that this gold will just go to India, which is one of the biggest buyers in the world of gold, and India will be more than happy to buy that gold from Russia and provide dollars, euros, whatever Russia needs at the moment. So that's a situation. This is the sort of general update. And now let's do walk through the front line, and we'll actually discuss a little bit about what Ukrainian forces can do to counter Russian attacks. We discussed this a little bit before, but we'll just discuss a little bit again because there was a question from one of the viewers. But let's start in a clockwise fashion. We'll start from the very north. Again, along the state border, exchange of artillery fire, nothing new, things don't change there. Then let's move to Kharkiv. Oh, let's actually, sorry. Oops. Okay, that's better. So again, the same kind of fighting to maintain this buffer by Russia, and to remove the buffer by Ukrainian forces. But the situation a little bit changed in the way that the balance of power has a little bit shifted towards in Russian favor. So Russian forces right now more on sort of offensive. It's a small scale attacks. It's nothing major, but nevertheless, the initiative has switched to the Russian side, and they are pressuring Ukrainian troops in a number of places. Now they're pressuring in this area. So essentially, they would like to to take control of this road that apparently leads sort of to Kharkiv, and the shortest route from the Russian side. So they're putting pressure in this area. And then obviously they're putting pressure to capture Stary Saltiv, but so far there's no success there. Now let's move to to Izyum bridgehead. Situation here is the same, continuous Russian attacks in the same area. They just would like to, breach Ukrainian defenses along this road and just drive south towards this town Slovyansk. But so far, the Ukrainian defensive positions are holding on. Now let's move to former Severodonetsk salient. Now let's call it Lysychansk salient, because this is the most dangerous situation for Ukrainian army overall. So let's actually look what's going on here. So Russian troops now today were attacking very heavily in direction of Vovchoyarivka, this village here. Essentially, if they capture this village Vovchoyarivka, Ukrainian troops with, let's say, not guaranteed, but let's say 90% probability, 95% probability, will be forced to withdraw to the line that we discussed. It sort of starts from Bogorodychne and kind of goes somewhere along the pass, kind of south to Berestove. Because if Russian troops control Vovchoyarivka, then they effectively control this road that's used to supply Ukrainian troops in this area, and it starts from this small town Siversk, then it goes through Verkhnyokamensky, Svtilodarsk, and so on, and then it's just kind of network that spreads everywhere here. So essentially, if they capture this road is about 2 kilometers from Vovchoyarivka, maybe 3 kilometers. We can have a look. We actually can look at the situation here. Let's actually this is how the situation looked on the 25th yesterday. At that time, actually, Russian troops did launch two prong attacks towards this industrial site here, and then the smaller industrial site here. So, and then today they launched attack towards Vovchoyarivka. So this is what it looks, right? So they made some small dents here. The fighting is somewhere in this industrial site, then this smaller industrial site here, and this is some dent towards Vovchoyarivka. Russian sources report that they captured Vovchoyarivka, which we believe is false, and that's not the case, but it's definitely that the fighting is starting to be happening on outskirts of Vovchoyarivka, right? And so at this point, this is the more dangerous situation here, because as we said, this is the road, right? You can see it's much more clear here on this map. You see this road, right? So it goes from Siversky, then through Verkhnyokamensky, Svtilodarsk, and then this road kind of just basically like branches of the tree that used to supply all of the troops in this area. So they capture Vovchoyarivka, then it's just here the scale 2 kilometers here. So you can see it's okay, maybe not 2 kilometers, but it's okay, 3 kilometers. It's essentially you can even you can control this road at that point even with the mortar fire. So that really means that it will be non-stop fire here. It's still possible to bring resources to all of these troops here. It's just going to be extremely difficult. It's going to be similar to Severodonetsk, right? If you remember, the bridges were blown, and then it became extremely difficult to resupply Ukrainian troops there. And was one of the major reasons for withdrawal from Severodonetsk, because the logistics is extremely important in the war, even though most people don't discuss it. Now let's keep moving. Let's move towards the southern section of this whole Popasna salient. So Wagner mercenaries trying to attack towards Klinovo here. Then there were small, relatively weak attempts to sort of expand this salient here without much success. So overall, not as intense fighting as it used to be. Actually, forgot to mention there was also again intense Russian attacks towards this to capture this road. Maybe just go back a little bit just to show. Hold on. So there were quite strong attacks towards this Berestova, Bogorodychne. Essentially, they want to breaks through here in this area, because if the Russian troops break through in this area, it gives many more opportunities. It become the sort of the total price of becomes much bigger. So that's sort of the potential of breakthrough here is much bigger than, let's say, breakthroughs at Vovchoyarivka overall. And then going back to the strategy, what Ukraine can do or Ukrainian army can do is really what we mentioned, that Ukraine got finally some one of the best artillery pieces, artillery sort of units that Russian does not have. So Ukraine can use that to strategically and systematically destroy Russian long-range artillery, because Russia employs 203 millimeter cannons. Then it has 152 millimeter. That's also, believe, 52 caliber, like lengths of the barrel of 52 calibers, and also 48. So, but they don't have many of those. If Ukraine could knock out those, then it's kind of like a house of cards, because the rest, they kind of cover the rest of their sort of shorter range artillery. So then you can almost without problem knock out the rest of the sort of shorter range artillery. So it's basically kind of like a cascading effect. You destroy the long range artillery, then that's it. Then the rest of the artillery is effectively done. It's just a question of time. So, and given that you have this strong long distance advantage, especially with Ukraine getting right now this HIMARS systems, so this could be used to essentially grind to a halt Russian attacks, because if in a very simple way, the way Russia attacks right now, all of that they just essentially shell Ukrainian positions into oblivion, right? And given that Ukrainian soldiers are poorly trained or not trained at all how to deal with artillery fire, that they need to dig in, and the type of their sort of trenches and this foxholes, how they need to do it, they really and at large they poorly train in this way. So the only way for Ukrainian army is to literally stop this long-range artillery, Russian artillery, which will then eventually stop the general artillery support, and then ability of Russian troops to achieve anything is essentially close to zero, because Russia has, we mentioned this before many times, has fewer soldiers, right? So Ukrainian army for right now, in terms of number of soldiers, outnumbers Russian army, right? So, and then Ukrainian army has enough of anti-tank weapons to effectively prevent Russian tank breakthrough. So the only sort of the weakness of the Ukrainian sort of defenses and position right now is this counter battery fight, right? But that Ukraine needs to start doing in a systematic way, not like just kind of like knee-jerk reaction, just sort of reactive behavior, basically, right? But they basically need to create sort of like a long-range artillery hunt teams, right? Get the whatever small number of UAVs Ukraine has, and then Ukraine has counter battery fire radars from the US. So there are some tools, but they need to be organized in proper way and tasked sort of with this sole goal. And specifically, Ukraine does not have enough number of this modern artillery pieces to sort of cover the entire front line. But like, for example, they can concentrate this here at near Lysychansk to dwarf to basically destroy this Russian advance or this Russian attack that's essentially happening here, and that will eventually lead to the capture of Lysychansk, of this area. There is no question about it. If things are not changed the way they are, where Ukrainian army practicing just positional statical defense with poor support of the infantry in terms of artillery cover and artillery support, that's not there. That's kind of sometimes missing. Sometimes it is there, but overall it's not sufficient. So if this system continues the way it is, it's guaranteed that Ukraine will lose Lysychansk. And we don't want to make prediction, whatever it's going to be, 10 days, 5 days, 3 days, 15 days, doesn't matter, but eventually it's going to happen, right? It's just a question of time. So so this is the only way for Ukraine to change something in immediate way, right? Because there are many things that Ukraine could do and actually should do in sort of intermediate term, medium term, and the long term. But that's many things, and we probably already discussing it for a little bit too long, so we don't want to waste a lot of your time. So again, this is the only way that Ukraine can deal with Russian advances at this point. Now let's keep going. Let's go back. So again, we discussed this situation here is stable, no essential changes. Now let's move what's going on at Donetsk, west of Donetsk. Very weak attacks again towards this New York, and then from this area of Novobakhmutivka towards sort of southwest of Avdiyivka, with the long-term goal is to create some kind of pocket around Avdiyivka and force withdrawal of Ukrainian troops. But it's all weak. There's all of the troops, the most battle-capable troops are pulled from here, so it's just in a way, it's probably more like a distraction for Ukrainian command, just to keep some forces there and not to move them to Lysychansk area, essentially. Now let's see what's going on Zaporizhia front line. And situation here is totally frozen, nothing sort of new. Artillery shelling, reconnaissance, just the same situation here as we've seen for a long time now. Now let's jump to Kherson bridgehead, and the same situation as on Zaporizhia front line. Static positional defenses, really artillery shelling, nothing new essentially here, more or less stable. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and until tomorrow, bye bye.